So today is day one of NFL free agency, and I didn't expect much from the Colts, given that, well, it's the Colts and Chris Ballard has been here for like 7 years and hasn't won the division. But he actually did make a couple of moves that I very much enjoyed. The first one being bringing in Cameron Bynum to a 4-year, $60 million contract. Lou Anarumo, the new defensive coordinator of the Colts, safety is such a priority in his scheme. You look at all the years where he had the right personnel, like the Bengals, and they went to the Super Bowl. They had a very good defense. They shut down Mahomes in the playoffs that year. Look at their safety play, right? And now in Indianapolis, of course, he's got Nick Cross, who should have been a Pro Bowler. I think he's one of the better young safeties in football. And now across from him, of course, is going to be the newest addition, Cam Bynum. Not only is he very good at football, but he's a presence in the locker room that the Vikings are going to miss. But you look at his time with the Vikings, 65 games, including 54 starts. He had 28 total passes defended, 3 forced fumbles, over 340 tackles is very, very good. 8 interceptions. He just gives stability. I'm not entirely sure what happened to Julian Blackman. I don't see him. I do see him on the roster. Hopefully they can bring him back for some depth. But the safety position is incredible now. I'm looking forward to seeing what the defense can do. I always thought we had good personnel on the defense, just not the right scheme around them, especially after Eberflus left. So I'm happy with that addition. Another move that the Colts made, and these final 2 moves I am just looking at for the first time. So you guys are going to see my live reaction. So we agreed to, looks like, a restructured or sort of a rework contract with Braden Smith to keep him as the starter at right tackle. Smith was entering the final year of a 4-year, $70 million contract extension he inked in July 2021. The 2018 second-round pick, who turns 29 in March, was set to have a $19.75 million cap hit in 2025. That is very high. That's the 4th highest mark on the team, to be exact. The Colts could have released him to create $16.75 million in cap space, but that wouldn't have made much sense given that there's a young quarterback. Jonathan Taylor is as big to this offense as probably like any player in the league outside of like a quarterback, right? Jonathan Taylor means a lot to this offense, more than most do to their teams. So it wouldn't have made sense to just cut a Pro Bowl level right tackle. I think when Braden Smith's fully healthy, he's one of the better at his position in the game. So to bring him back is huge. Again, the Colts, yeah, you want to be focusing on saving some money, but this has to be a very spend-heavy offseason after the disappointing season last year. Let's see what else this has to say. So, yeah, instead of that, the Colts chose to retain Smith at what will likely be a much lower price. Although his exact salary and the subsequent cap savings are unclear at the moment, Smith missed the final 5 games of the 2024 season due to an undisclosed personal matter, but Indianapolis must feel confident in his ability, or rather availability, moving forward, since it opted to keep him around. I'm not sure exactly if the Colts are 100% certain of him being available. It's more so if he's just way too good to let go of. Especially, think about it this way, jobs are on the line, Richardson, Ballard, Steichen. You can't just let your starting right tackle go. You got to figure out a way to bring him back. And then it says, let's see, during the NFL Scouting Combine, Colts GM Chris Ballard said on 107.5, The Fan, that he was hopeful Smith would remain with the franchise. It looks like he is. So Roquan Davis ended up being released. That freed up some cap space. This was a predictable move by the Colts, who didn't get nearly enough production out of Davis after signing him in free agency last offseason. Yeah, I mean, Davis just didn't really do much. I mean, he was supposed to be sort of like a big body in the interior of the defensive line. Very good against the run, commands double teams, rushing after the passer, but it just never clicked, if I'm being honest with you. I thought Grover Stewart was phenomenal, and DeForest Buckner obviously was great too. But Davis just was essentially non-existent. That saved the Colts about $6.5 million in cap space while costing them $2.5 million in dead money. I mean, that's fine. You'll live with the dead money, but clearing up that cap space is huge. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to go through Davis's stats. Like, he's no longer on the team. I think we can all agree that he had to be cut. In terms of Dayo Odeyingbo, it appears he has played his last game for the Colts. Multiple reports have indicated that the defensive end will sign with the Chicago Bears on a 3-year, $48 million deal with $32 million guaranteed. After the Colts drafted Laiatu Latu in the first round last season and picked up Kwity Paye's 5th-year option, it always seemed like Odeyingbo's days in Indy were numbered. Personally, I'm sad to have lost Odeyingbo. I think he's very underrated. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive ends in football. But you drafted Laiatu Latu in the first round. I mean, you can't afford to pay Odeyingbo his market value there. So, yeah, it's expected that his days are numbered. I still think Latu has a promising future ahead of him. If I'm being honest with you guys, I never was big on that pick. absolutely, he was the best defensive end in my opinion. I mean, Jared Verse was ended up being that. It's still early, but I mean, Jared Verse looks like he's going to be a superstar. But I never wanted a defensive end. I personally wanted a big time receiver. If I was Chris Ballard, I would have drafted Brian Thomas Jr. with that 15th pick. I'm not Chris Ballard, so it didn't happen, but clearly that would have been the right decision. I get, yeah, defensive end is more important than the receiver, but the Colts, like, they could have drafted Brian Thomas Jr. and then just paid Odang. Like, I would have done that, but it didn't happen. Hopefully Latu can have a big year too, though, because there was times where I was watching the Colts last season, I couldn't even tell he was on the field. A first round pick, that should never be a case. Like, that should never happen. So he's really got to turn it around in year two. But again, it takes many guys multiple years to sort of blossom into that player that they have the potential to be. So it's way too early to start being like it was the wrong pick. But yeah, I personally just, it's a little bit disappointing to see Odangbo go, because you just hate to lose good football players because you can't exactly pay them, right? So that sucks. In terms of, yeah, there's no other news on the Colts. It's only day one of free agency, but to go out there and to retain your starting right tackle, to bring in a big time safety, lose Odangbo, I mean, this was a pretty good day for the Colts. They also saved some cap by cutting Davis. Justin Fields went to the Jets, so now we can cross him off of the list. Daniel Jones, I'm looking at a Trey Lance. I don't think Kirk Cousins got released yet, so he's not eligible to sign with anyone. But yeah, Jacoby Brissett's another name that comes to my mind. Maybe a Jameis Winston. I'm interested to see who the Colts bring in at quarterback. I think we'll get a good indication of how much they trust Richardson, deciding by who they bring in. Like, if they bring in Daniel Jones, to me, that screams he's competing for the starting job. If they bring in again like a Jacoby Brissett, I don't think that's the case, right? So I hope the Colts do bring some serious competition. I think the only way Richardson will end up being a good quarterback is if he's pushed. Like we saw last year, he had no competition, and he was called up by the veterans for not being up to par, right, with just everything. And then he started to play better after being called out and finished the season off hurt or whatever. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. You look at like Jason Bean's the only other quarterback that's on a contract right now. Of course, Joe Flacco's days are all but over in Indy, and then Sam Ehlinger's a free agent. So, yeah, we'll see what the Colts do there. But so far, so good. If I'm a Colts fan, which I am, Cam Bynum is a big-time pickup. He's not the flashiest name in the world, but this is a move that takes the Colts defense to a different level. Good guy in the locker room. Braden Smith being back is big for the offensive line. I'm not sure exactly if Ryan Kelly's returning or not. That's still to be determined, but the offensive line, if healthy, I think is one of the better units in football. And the Colts are going to be a run first team, so you've got to have guys up front that can block. I also like our depth too with Golowinski and Goncalves and Bortolini, even like a Dalton Tucker. Like, I think there's good depth. I think the offensive line is fine. It just needs to be available. Has been the biggest thing. Tight end is going to be a position to look at, but I think that's going to be more so at the end of April in the draft. Free agency is just sort of depth, and I did not expect them to go out and get Cam Bynum, but I'm happy they did. Now it's just, to me, like I said, it's just about sort of filling out the rest of the roster. I think the draft's going to be the thing for the Colts, though. They've got to have a big-time draft. We saw, like, the Eagles, for example. They had a big draft. The Rams had a big draft. Like, you look at the best teams, like, they have big drafts, and the Colts need to have that. It hasn't. I mean, it did happen with Ballard. I'm not going to say it hasn't. 2018, Darius Leonard, Shaq Leonard now. And, of course, they also had Quentin Nelson in that one. But, yeah.